I have never played Pokemon Black 2, so I thought it would be a good idea to play it as a hardcore Nuzlocke, because that's what any sane person would do. I played Pokemon Black and White when they first came out, but I didn't even Nuzlocke those. Black 2 and White 2 are regarded as some of the toughest games in the franchise, so I'm sure that nothing bad will come from this. To familiarize myself with the Unova region, I'm going to be playing with Gen 5 Mons only. In addition to my standard hardcore Nuzlocke rules, I'll also be banning the use of setup moves and any intentional EV training, which will allow me to not leave any room for cheesing the game. God, I'm so sorry. If you like hardcore Nuzlocke content like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. But without further ado, let's see what the terrifying region of Unova has in store for us. We open on this beautiful setting of Aspertia City, and even over a decade later, I still think these are some of the best graphics in the entire franchise, even by today's standards. For the purposes of this being my first run, I kept things simple and let my rival's name be Hugh. Hugh better not double cross me, buddy.
Okay, get out.
Bianca then gives us our starter Pokemon, and I gotta say, there's just something I love about this little fella, known as Oshawott. So we pick him and name him Salt Lake City. We take care of Hugh's snooty serpent relatively well, and then begin our journey. On Route 19, our first Unovan encounter is in the form of Savannah the Patrat. Then on Route 20, we find a Pidove named Phoenix. In Flockhessie Ranch, we find ourselves a cute little pup, and name him Boston. We then retrieve the Herdier from a Plasma Grunt who lodges the Frustration TM at us, which is kinda funny to show frustration by gifting us an item, right? Kill him with kindness. The fact that they've made TMs reusable in this generation is hands down one of the best changes Game Freak ever made. We make sure to get our Oran Berries from the champion that never was, and then make it to our first gym challenge. This is my first time playing this game, which means I don't have access to challenge mode yet, although I've heard that the updated challenge mode levels aren't accurately reflected in the Pokemon stats. It makes it feel like you could play this game on normal mode or challenge mode. So, tomatoes potatoes. It's time to battle a familiar face from Black and White, Charon, who now specializes in normal types. He leads with the Patrat, and I lead with Boston. I start off with Frustration, which deals more damage the lesser your Pokemon's friendship level is. Seeing as to how we're pretty early in the run, Boston must really hate us. After some exchanges of Workup, Frustration, Tackle, and a Potion Heal from Charon, Chris Pratt is eventually taken down. This sets the stage for his terrifying ace, Lillipup. I switch to Phoenix, mostly to use Growl a handful of times, while Lillipup tries to set up Workups and deal damage with Tackle. At one point we're brought into the red, which procs our Oran Berry, and I managed to get the Tiny Terrier to -1 attack before switching to Salt Lake City. The Lillipup uses Workup upon switching in, then we successfully take it out with 3 water guns while he tries to set up, giving us our first Unovan gym badge. I forgot to record it here, but after the battle Bianca shows up and gives you the return TM, which will provide a powerful attacking move for my team. However, as we make our way over to Burbank City, tragedy strikes as a random NPC killed our poor Salt Lake City with a rollout from Dunsparce. Of all the ways to lose a Pokemon, it's pretty embarrassing to lose it to this thing. Not gonna lie, this makes me pretty bummed. So I reset. I really wanted the chance to play with Duat and Samurott, so since it's still early in the game, I felt like it was worth it. We handled Charon very similarly as we did in Attempt 1, and then we finally make it to Burbank City. In the Burbank complex, we get an Audino named Augustus and find ourselves the Thief TM. Then our evolutions include Boston into a Herdier, and Salt Lake City into what might be one of my favorite middle stage evolutions, Duat. Look at this guy, he's such a bro. But now we must pick our poison and rock and roll, as we take on Roxy. 2 returns from Augustus easily take out Roxy's leading Coughing, and then in comes Whirlipede. We switch in Boston for the Intimidate drop, and the Whirlster nails us with Venoshock for 13 damage. After a Protect, we leer the Whirlipede down before she uses another Venoshock. Augustus rotates back in, and with special thanks to the defense drop from Boston, 2 returns are enough to take out Whirlipede, giving us sweet, sweet victory. You know, I have no idea why people complain about Pokestar Studios. Personally, I love it. I don't for a second consider it to be a waste of time, or find it tedious or annoying, or think it reminds me of the declining state of Hollywood. An even cooler moment is taking this boat ride to Castelia City. What an awesome sight. While there, we rummage through Castelia sewers, which actually doesn't have any eligible encounters for us, but we pummel the Team Plasma grunts and get some evolutions in the form of Savannah and Phoenix. The relic passage opens up for us, and there we find a rock'n'rollin' named Boulder. I found out after the fact that I could have guaranteed myself a drill burr here in the dust clouds, but oh well. Hopefully we'll find that later. The sewers are also home to the leftovers, arguably the best held item in the game. On Route 4, even though we could have access to some pretty interesting encounters, we get the pile of garbage. So we name him after the city best known for its iconic displays of garbage, the city that I live in, New York City. This brings us to Berg, who specializes in bug types. His bug grass type Swadloon is sliced and diced by an air cutter from Phoenix, and then in comes the bug rock type Dwebble. I switch to Salt Lake on a smackdown, and then the leftovers item gets put to use immediately. Our Razor Shell brings Dwebble low before he just sets up a rock polish. Berg heals, we bring him low again, then Dwebble outspeeds for a smackdown before we take him out. Last up is his Leaf Annie, so I switch back to Phoenix on a Razor Leaf that obviously crits. The Fashionista bug brings us into the yellow with Cut, then we retaliate with an air cutter to bring him low, therefore activating the Citrus Berry. In order to avoid a critical hit death, I switch to Boston to get off an Intimidate, and the good girl manages to dodge a Cut. She tanks a Razor Leaf, and then one final return finishes off Leaf Annie, exterminating Berg and his team. We then meet Colress on Route 4, which is a really cool addition to the Team Plasma crew in these sequels. He doesn't give us any major issues now, but I'm sure that'll change later on. In the desert resort, we find a new friend that's a bit more interesting than just a pile of garbage, a Sandile. We name this one Miami. Our Boulder evolves into a Boulder, and then we trade evolve Boulder so we can get a Gigalith. Man, say what you will, but this Join Avenue music goes hard. Bianca then shows us what she's calling her hidden grotto. Bianca, is that even appropriate? I thought this was a kid's game. Oh, that's what you mean. In the trees, got it. Total misunderstanding. I'm sorry, On Route 5 we catch a Chinchino named Sanfran, which in hindsight I should have caught a Minchino since this is a stone evolution and Chinchino doesn't learn any more moves, but oh well. Route 16 we find a Gothita and name her Seattle. It's here that I want to talk about the berry situation in Unova. See, Unova doesn't have overworld berry trees like what you see in Hoenn and Sinnoh. Instead, you can grow berries in what's known as the Dream World, which is accessible through the Sea Gear and Wi-Fi. Some of the ways you can get berries are by defeating rangers who gift you berries, by building up Join Avenue and buying berries, or by thieving berries off wild Pokemon. I'm gonna mostly be relying on stealing berries from wild Pokemon and using a little magic to multiply my berries, since the Dream World isn't accessible to us. Different wild Pokemon can hold different types of useful berries. For example, an Audino has a 50% chance to hold an Oran Berry, but a 5% chance to hold a Citrus Berry. Given that this makes Citrus Berries much more rare, I decided to only give myself 5 Citrus Berries after every gym battle, which could be a fun way of using them as limited resources. If you have any thoughts on how you handle the berries in Unova, feel free to let me know in the comments. Anyways, now we have our electrifying battle against Elisa. Her Emolga outplays me and Volt switches Boulder into Elisa's Flaffy, which gets hit by a smackdown. Boulder gets back a bit of HP with leftovers, and then I switch into Miami, accurately predicting Flaffy's Volt switch. We then outspeed and kill with a Sand Tomb. She then brings in her ace Zebstrika, who interestingly goes for Pursuit against my Dark type, and then unfortunately we miss a Sand Tomb. The Zippy Zebra then goes for Quick Attack while we land a Sand Tomb. The residual damage brings her ace over half, therefore healing up a bit of HP with a Citrus Berry. I was nervous of putting her into healing range, so I switched to Boulder on a Flame Charge. I then tried to make the predictive move of going for Rock Slide while Zebstrika Volt switches out. Emolga comes in and... we miss Rock Slide. Crap. We're not at very good health, so I bring back the Floridian Croc on a Volt switch. 2 exchanges of Quick Attacks and Crunches take out the Flying Squirrel, although we get paralyzed from static, which is why I came prepared with a Cherry Berry. Now it's time for an epic sequel. The Elisa Zebstrika's back. I decide to switch out the Gator as Elisa goes for Pursuit, but thankfully no crit. I bring in Boston, and we brace ourselves for the oncoming Volt switch. Dear lord, that's so much damage. Thank goodness we recover some HP with a Citrus Berry. A return then brings Zebstrika into the red, Elisa heals, then another return brings her to about a third. I weigh my options here, but ultimately none of my team members can really take a Volt Switch that well, not to mention Zebstrika definitely outspeeds my entire team. So, I decide to stay in and pray that Boston survives, and thankfully we do. Another return takes her out. The battle ends, and we claim the 4th gym badge while remaining completely deathless. Our notable encounters before the next gym include a Ducklet on the Driftvale drawbridge named Memphis, a Venipede in the Lostlorn Forest named New Orleans, a Zorua that we received from Rude, yes that's his name, that we named Zion, and then we find what is arguably the most important encounter in this entire run, a Drillbur in Chargestone Cave, that we name Athens. All the type boosting gems, which give a one-time 50% boost to a move that corresponds with their respective type, can be found here in the Chargestone Cave, with enough patience and magic. Athens immediately evolves into a powerful Excadrill, and then we saddle up for a showdown versus Clay. I make a pretty immediate mistake in forgetting that his Krokorok has Intimidate, therefore not being able to one-shot him with a Bug Gem boosted Bug Bite from New Orleans. To remedy this, I use a Poison Tail for some chip, Krokorok lowers our speed with Bulldoze, and then we take him out with the aforementioned Bug Bite. This brings in his terrifying ace, Excadrill. I now bait Rock Slide, so I switch to Miami the Krokorok for Intimidate drop and to tank the hit. I then expect literally any of his other moves to come out since Rock Slide is the only move that Miami resists. So I switch to Memphis, but he uses Rock Slide? Which thank heaven misses. That absolutely would have killed poor little Ducklet. I switch over to Athens on what thankfully this time is the predicted move of Rock Slide, and we've got ourselves a mirror match. Depending on Clay's Excadrill's nature, he may or may not outspeed, but thankfully we strike first and go for a dig. Thank goodness Bulldoze doesn't affect Pokemon underground. We come up for a dig, and Excadrill is down for the count. Way to go, Athens. His final Pokemon Sandslash comes out. In order to get some damage off on this thing, I go for a dig to bring Sandslash over half, then the Hash-slinging Slasher goes for a Bulldoze, but I equipped a Shuka Berry to reduce some of the damage. Eventually I switched over to Salt Lake City, who takes a Crush Claw, and then he outspeeds for a Water Pulse KO, giving us the 5th gym badge. We're then introduced to the Pokemon World Tournament, completing which grants us some very helpful stones, TMs, and held items. As an extra challenge, I decided to only allow myself one of each of the best held items, including the choice items in Life Orb. This forces me to think strategically about how I distribute these powerful held items from battle to battle. We take care of the Plasma Frigate, 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 and it's not too much longer until we get to Mistralton City. Before taking on Skyla, Salt Lake City takes his final form as a Samurott, and then we get a very helpful encounter for the Flying type gym, a Zebstrika named Sam Simeon. So we'll see how our newest companion will fare as we take to the skies in the Mistralton gym. Although our lead is the champion of the Driftvale gym, Athens. He absolutely walls Skyla's lead Swoobat, so even though we flinch on the first Heart Stamp, after the second one a Rock Gem boosted Rock Slide crushes the Romantic Bat. Predictably her Water-type Swanna comes in, so we swap in Salt Lake City as he brushes off a Bubble Beam. Salt Lake City has the held leftovers for passive recovery. The next step of my plan is to go for Encore, though the move that Skyla goes for determines the rest of the strategy. She goes for Feather Dance, but that's fine. We simply switch into San Simeon and take Swanna out with a 4x super effective Discharge. Her final Pokemon Skarmory gets taken deep into the red with a Discharge, plus gets paralyzed, and then gets fully paralyzed. Poor Skyla. She heals with a Hyper Potion, but her fate is already sealed. 2 more Discharges take it out, and we'll be eating nice crispy chicken tonight. I mean, we have the 6th gym badge. In the Celestial Tower just north of Mistralton City, you can all but guarantee yourself a Litwick, giving you a powerful Ghost Fire type in the form of Chandelure for the late game. We then fly off into the night and reach Lentamus Town, before trekking through Reversal Mountain. Over the river and through the woods to Undella Town we go. How serene and peaceful this town is, huh? Surrounded by water, very calming, no imminent dangers or surprises. So, yeah, I had no idea about this Hue battle. Surprise rival battles normally can be brutal for me, especially with not having any particular plan. And folks, that's exactly why I wipe to Hue. See, the biggest problem was his ace Superior, who now has Coil, which raises attack, defense, and accuracy. I definitely made some bad switches and moves at the wrong times, but this Superior managed to get off 6 Coils and wipe the entirety of my team. I also made the mistake of not having enough special attacking moves on my team to counter the Superior's defense boosts. This is something that easily could have been avoided if I knew this battle was coming, and had a plan for this devious serpent. They say that game knowledge is the greatest strength you can have as a Nuzlocker, and I'm really feeling that here. So, after a bitter loss, the dust settles, and we reset. In attempt 3, first off I changed Q's name to Russia, so do with that what you will. Second, I make a pretty dramatic change by switching my starter choice to Tepig instead of Oshawott. This is mostly because I don't want to deal with Russia's Coiling Superior, but from what I understand, the Tepig line is easiest to work with in Unova, even if I may or may not have despised this thing when I first saw it due to thinking that Game Freak literally had zero creativity from making a third fire fighting type starter. Jesus Christ. Most of attempt 3 looks pretty similar to attempt 2, with both some old and new faces. For the new team members, I'll bring them up as you see them in battle. Although, I want to mention one new encounter that ends up being a key player later on. A Darumaka in the Desert Resort, that we named Charleston. We even managed to get all the way back to the same point as where we wiped, without losing a single Pokemon. So, now that I've done the work of getting all the way back to this point and strategizing for this dreaded battle with Russia, let's see if our new team has what it takes to get our personal best. I lead with a new team member in the form of Lehunta the Galvantula, caught in Chargestone Cave. We caught Athens the Excadrill in Relic Passage this time. Lehunta is holding the Choice Specs, so a Volt Switch cleanly takes out the Unfezant in one hit. We bring in Salt Lake City, which is now an Imbor, and this baits in his Samurott. Another new team member, Dallas the Whimsicott, comes in on a revenge before recovering some HP with leftovers and then firing back with a Giga Drain, which crits for the kill. Dallas has already been so clutch in this run, and he asserts his dominance once more here. For his last Pokemon Simisage, I simply switch to Lehunta on a Seed Bomb, and then fire off a Choice Specs boosted Signal Beam for the one-hit KO, giving us our furthest attempt. A few new encounters later, we reach Opelucid City, and we get a sick new evolution in the form of Miami the Crocodile. On Route 9, I try my luck at the one chance I have of finding a Pawniard, but it's New York City. Never in my life have I been so disappointed to see my own city again. No Bisharp this run, which is unfortunate since it gives us one less Dragon Resist against Drayden, whose Dragon types can prove to be tough since we're one generation away from the beloved Fairy type. I need some chip damage, so I use an Electric Gem boosted Volt Switch to switch in Athens on what surely is a Rock Slide. Son of a bib barrel. Guess Revenge AI is weird? Maybe because it saw that Lehunta was faster? I don't know. Regardless, I'm able to outspeed and kill Draudigon with an Earthquake on the next turn. Flygon comes in next, so I switch to Dallas on an Earth Power. From here, 3 Giga Drains are enough to take out the Draconian Housefly. Last up, of course, is Drayden's Haxorus. I debate whether to use Charm to reduce attack or Stun Spore for speed control, but after some thinking, I decide to go for the 75% accurate Stun Spore, and we connect. Thank goodness. Haxorus uses Dragon Tail, think Arceus that didn't crit, and Athens gets sent out, which honestly couldn't be more perfect. We unleash an Earthquake, and it's enough for a one-hit KO. That either was a 10 to 20% chance to kill, or the Haxorus had a minus defense nature, but regardless, that's pretty lucky. With that, we have our penultimate gym badge. You know, I know it's been a crazy year, but a flying ship that shoots massive spears of ice onto the earth was not on my 2024 bingo card. I gotta say, while this Imbor in particular hasn't been the craziest Pokemon in my box, I can see why people use it for these games. Its utility for Team Plasma in the late game, especially against bosses like Zinzolin, tends to trivialize these battles. After slipping and sliding our way to victory, we run through the Marine Tube for yet another demonstration of the absolute pinnacle of DS graphics. And then, we take on the derpy dude that is Marlin. Against this leading Caracosta, I start off with an Emolga named Las Vegas. Hell yeah, baby. I use Volt Switch really just to get off some damage, but Las Vegas of course crits and brings the turtle down to sturdy. No matter, Dallas comes in on a smackdown, and then 2 Giga Drains easily take him out. Wailord comes in, and I start off by paralyzing the whale. Wailord simply sets up an amnesia. I use Giga Drain just to start going for some damage, and Wailord is paralyzed. Another Giga Drain brings Wailord over half, then he goes for another amnesia. The plan from here is to switch to Albany the Sawsbuck and use the physical move Horn Leech, but he goes for Bounce. Okay, switch to Las Vegas, and Wailord actually misses Bounce. Let's try this again. Switch to Albany and he goes for Scald. Albany is burned, but that gets healed by a held Lumberry. Horn Leech then takes it out, and that brings Albany to full HP. His final Pokemon Jellicent comes out, and Sawsbuck is actually the perfect counter to this thing, with being immune to Jellicent's Ghost move and resisting his water moves. Horn Leech deals some pretty significant damage before his Citrus Berry, then Jellicent goes for a Scald, which gets the burn. Alright, well, great. Good thing at least I have some aromatherapy. Jellicent also takes his turn to heal themselves in the form of Recover. I leech the Aquatic Phantasm again, bringing him low in the red, and Jellicent goes for Scald, which burns us again. This burn luck is honestly insane. Doesn't matter too much because on the next turn we easily take him out with one more Horn Leech, handing us our final Unnovan Gym Badge. Along the way to the climax of the story, we pick up two new friends in the form of Morrison the Crustal in Seaside Cave, and Anchorage the Vanillish in the Giant Chasm. We plow through all the Plasma Grunts as we make our way to their leaders. Call me crazy, but I feel like Excadrill completely trivializes Colress. I have to break the sturdy of Magneton with Metal Claw before taking it out with an Earthquake. Magnezone blows up on me, but, you know, we're Excadrill. Beheeyem is a Beheeyem. I pop the Kling-Klang's air balloon before taking it out with an EQ, and Metang goes down to a single EQ. Next time I'll be curious to see what doing this battle without Excadrill or Emboar will be like. Before continuing, I have to mention a very important evolution, Charleston the Darumaka. Not to state the obvious, but Darmanitan is an insane Pokemon. I'll let him speak for himself though. We then reach the final room in the Giant Chasm, where Ghetsis tries to kill us with Icicle Spears. N comes in on a Zekrom to stop it, they get into some argument, then we watch the whole Zekrom and Kyurem fusion thing happen. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really pay attention to the story. Okay, so we take on the Kyurem Black, and I've equipped a Choice Band on our Charleston. Even still, a super effective superpower is a roll to kill, and a critical hit from this thing can easily take out Charleston. So I hold my breath, and we get the roll! Charleston, you are a beast. And now it's time for what quite honestly might be my favorite battle in this entire run, the final boss fight against Ghetsis. I loved strategizing for this, but let's see if my plans actually come to fruition. Against this lead Covagrigus, a Choice Band boosted Flare Blitz is enough to take it out in one hit, which leaves us with recoil damage of course. This brings in Seismitoad, so naturally I bring in Dallas the Whimsicott. Unfortunately I come in on a Muddy Water instead of Earthquake, so I have to pray for no accuracy drop, and thankfully it doesn't happen. As can be predicted, I go for Giga Drain, which cleanly takes it out and gives us back all our HP. Next is Electros, so I bring in Las Vegas on an Acrobatics, which crits, and procs Static, but I attach to Citrus Berry. I then lock him into Acrobatics with an Encore, and conveniently the Electros stays paralyzed. This makes it completely safe to switch to Athens. Again, full paralysis. I go for Brick Break, which is a guaranteed 3-hit KO, and Athens brushes off in Acrobatics. However, Encore ends earlier than I would have liked, so now I have to worry about a Flamethrower. I decide to switch in Charleston on the aforementioned move, and then I use Fire Punch to take out the rest of their health. He next brings in Drapion, so I first switch to Memphis on an Earthquake, and then to Athens on a resisted Night Slash. I attached a Choice Scarf to Athens, and I'm not sure if that's relevant or not here, but in case it is, that's why we outspeed the Drapion and take it out with an Earthquake. And just like his Toxic counterpart before him, Toxicroak also falls to an Earthquake, and then his final Pokemon Hydreigon comes in. I switch to Miami to get off an Intimidate as Hydreigon uses a Life Orb boosted Dragon Rush for some brutal damage. I use Protect and Leftovers for some passive recovery, and then I take a moment to consider my options. I could switch to Athens on a Dragon Rush, but Hydreigon isn't in range for a Brick Break kill, so I need to get some damage off on it first. It's too risky to switch in anyone else, so I decide to just stay in and get off a Brick Break of our own, hoping that we don't get crit. Hydreigon unleashes Dragon Rush, and we dodge the crit. It wasn't until I reviewed the footage that I easily could have just stayed in with Miami to outspeed and kill with Brick Break, so I'm not really sure why I felt the need to switch to Athens, but oh well. Ironically, we dodge a Dragon Rush, and then we take the kill with a Choice Scarfed Brick Break, therefore ending the battle and saving the world. Or something. This brings us to the final steps of our challenge, as we next take on Victory Road. Thankfully there were no major difficulties, except for one very unfortunate event. I got hasty with one of the trainers, and a bulked up throw took out our beloved Miami. Losing a Crocodile right before the Elite Four is brutal, and it's a good reminder of why it's important to practice patience in Nuzlocking. We'll remember you as we march forward to victory, Miami. The final battle with Russia isn't even a major threat. We take out the Unfezant with the Choice Specs Volt Switch, Bouffalant gets pummeled by Charleston, Samurott actually is walled by Tampa the Jellicent, and Salt Lake City cleans up the Ganja Monkey. This gives us the Thunderbolt TM at an obscenely late point in the game, but no matter, because at long last we have made it to the Pokemon League. Unova has given us many great options for potential E4 mons, so a lot of preparation went into which ones I was going to bring to help cover as many bases as possible. When collecting final potential encounters, I made a mistake in the Mistralton Cave because I easily could have repel manipulated to get an Axew, but instead I get a Boldore. I had this in attempt 2, but not in this attempt. Oopsie doopsie. Guess no Haxorus this run. And yes, I did catch the Volcarona in the Relic Castle, but I didn't seem to find a place for it in the team for the E4, so I guess no Volcarona this run either. So after some planning and accumulating necessary TMs and items, allow me to present to you my final team. We have Charleston the Darmanitan, whose sheer power is a force to be reckoned with. Lehunta the Galvantula, which almost surprised me, but this speedy Volt Switcher will be quite valuable. Memphis the Swanna, whose ground immunity and powerful special moves should be very helpful. Surprise surprise, Athens the Excadrill. This thing is a beast, and you bet he'll be seeing us to victory, or die trying. Zion the Zoroark, and yes, we somehow got Pokerus, which again was pretty surprising to me, but dark types in general are pretty essential in this Elite Four. Then lastly, I evolved Salem into an almighty Chandelure. Very excited to use this. This Elite Four and Champion are known to be some of the toughest in the franchise. Will my team and preparations be enough, or will we fall short at the final steps? Let's find out. This was the first generation that they let you choose which order you fight the Elite Four members, which honestly makes a lot of sense. I decide to take on Caitlyn and her psychic types first. She leads with Musharna, and I lead with Salem, who I've attached the choice specs to. A Shadow Ball easily takes it out in one hit. Sigilif comes in, so I switch to Lehunta on a Shadow Ball. Then an Electric Gem boosted Volt Switch takes out the Sigilif, and gives me a clean switch to Zion, not in disguise. This is intentional because it baits Reuniclus with Focus Blast, so I switch to Salem who's immune to it. Then a Shadow Ball takes her out. Nice. Last up is Gothitelle, and I switch into Athens. Gothitelle actually manages to get off 2 Calm Minds, but thankfully I'm able to outspeed and outdamage her enough to take her out with some Earthquakes, giving us our first E4 win. Next I take on Grimsley with his Dark types. His leading Liepard fakes us out on the first turn, but then immediately falls to a Brick Break from Charleston. Grimsley then brings in Crocodile with Intimidate. However, a Fire Gem boosted Flare Blitz is still enough to take out this Crocagator, eliminating one of his biggest threats. Scrafty then comes in, so I switch to Memphis on unfortunately a Rock Tomb, but that's mostly to bait another Rock Tomb as I switch to Athens. I thought this would mean that I'd bait Brick Break as I switch to Lehunta, but she goes for Rock Tomb again. This is when I realized that it was just going for speed control. I Volt Switch out to Athens on yet another Rock Tomb, and then applying the logic from last time, this must mean that I still outspeed the Scrafty, otherwise she wouldn't have gone for it a second time previously. So I stay in, and we do outspeed, taking her out with an Earthquake. Bisharp comes in, but we easily tank a Night Slash and then take it out with an Earthquake, handing us the victory. Next up I take on Marshall the Fighting Expert. A Choice Band boosted Flare Blitz takes out his Throw and Conkeldurr with 1 hit apiece. Definitely feels nice to clear out his ace right away. Sock comes in, and I switch to Memphis on a Brick Break, then to Athens on a Payback. Bring in Lehunta on a Brick Break, then Volt Switch out to Athens on a Rock Slide. All of these predictions are going perfectly. We then outspeed and take him out with an Earthquake. Last up is Mienshao. but I always had a special plan for him. See, Athens now baits high jump kick, so I switched to Salem, who's immune, therefore causing the Mienshao to crash and take half of his own health. Salem is choice scarfed, so we outspeed and take Mienshao out with a flamethrower to finish the battle. Last up is Chantal with her ghost types, and this is definitely where the most could go wrong, including a potential death. She leads with her Kofagrigus, and I lead with Salem. And I know you're thinking, why would you lead with a ghost type if Kofagrigus has Shadow Ball? Well friends, that's because I didn't actually lead with Salem. It's Zion the Zoroark as he unleashes a foul play. Funny enough, this activates Kofagrigus' Mummy ability, which immediately breaks our disguise. But that doesn't matter much because we still baited a Shadow Ball just like what we wanted. On the next turn, we take her out with another foul play. Foul play does damage based on how high the foe's attack stat is, which is perfect for seeing Golurk next with their high attack stat, because one foul play is enough to take them out. Chandelure then comes in, and this thing is easily the biggest threat on our team. Foul play is a roll to kill, but it's much safer to stay in and try to take the KO than to switch to any team members, even if it means losing Zion. So I stay in and click foul play, and we get the range! Zion, you are him! Last up is Drifblim, so I apply the same logic as last time and just go for foul play. And Zion crit kills the Drifblim! I was not expecting a Zoroark sweep, but Zion clearly is out here proving himself. With that, we have completed all of the Elite Four, which means our final challenge awaits us, as we go in with all 6 team members intact. This cutscene into the final room is so epic. Iris is known to be one of the toughest champions in all of Pokemon. This will definitely require some sacrifices, but could a slippery slope lead us to peril? One way or another, this all ends here. She leads with a beastly Hydreigon, and I lead with Charleston. This pseudo-legendary hits like a truck, but it's no match for our Charleston because he cleanly takes it out with one mighty superpower. What a freaking boss. She then sends in Aggron, which almost surprised me, but I decide to take this 4x weakness to fighting type moves as an opportunity to knock it out with another superpower, despite us already being lowered by one attack stage. This brings in her ace, Haxorus. Haxorus sees a kill with a random move because of the defense drops, and I need to get some chip damage on the Haxorus anyway due to her focus sash, so I fire off a superpower, and then watch as he plummets to an earthquake. You'll go down as a legend, Charleston. This allows me to safely switch in Memphis, and thankfully we outspeed to kill Haxorus with an Ice Gem boosted Ice Beam. What a relief. Lapras comes in, so I switch to Athens on a predicted Thunderbolt. I then decide to just risk a crit from Lapras and go for Brick Break, which deals over half. Surf comes out, and no crit, baby. After some leftovers recovery, we take out Lapras with another Brick Break. Derpy Druddigon comes in next, so I switch to Memphis on a Focus Miss. Ice Beam then actually crits and brings Druddigon deep into the red before he fires off a Rock Slide, which unfortunately takes out Memphis. Thank you for your efforts, you beautiful duck. I bring in Athens, and I know she'll heal, so I go for Earthquake to bring Druddigon to about a third, protect for leftovers recovery, and then take her out with another Earthquake. Iris's final Pokemon then is Archeops. We might resist it, but this thing hits incredibly hard. I use Protect and Leftovers again for some recovery. A critical hit Acrobatics actually could kill Athens, but I decide to stand tall and pray. Here goes nothing. Athens holds. With that, Iron Head is enough to take out Archeops in one hit, giving us the victory and making us champions of the Unnovan Pokemon League. Wow. Black 2 and White 2 are incredible games. Whenever I want to explore a region that I haven't played a million times, looking at you, Hoenn and Sinnoh, I love to do these Nuzlockes where I only use Pokemon from that region. Unova obviously has some busted Pokemon, and this was a great way to re-familiarize myself with them and get a better sense of the game. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I had a ton of fun with this challenge, and I'm so excited to revisit Unova eventually. Make sure you're subscribed to keep up with more Nuzlocke videos like this, or else Athens will have a word with you on the matter. See y'all next time.